SEO, search engine optimization, is an action or, ideally, set of actions that are taken with the objective of positively influencing natural performance in search. It is made up of two key parts. Part A, appearing for search terms. This means getting your content to appear in search results when users search for relevant terms. It's not about position ranking, it's just about identifying relevant search keywords or phrases and successfully showing up somewhere in the results. For those terms or phrases we are now successfully appearing. We are then on Part B, improving your rank for those terms. This is where the focus shifts to moving up the rankings, ideally, to higher, more visible positions. Let's start with Part A. For one thing comes first. For another it's the simpler one. Because all you really need to do is two things. First, you need to have suitable pages on your site that are narratively about the topic. Pages that contain content clearly relating to the target terms and phrases. Second, make sure these pages can actually be discovered, that there are viable ways for these pages to be found by a search engine. First is identify your target search terms. We do our keyword research. This has uses and importance far beyond SEO, a topic in its own right. Then we build this out into a keyword and content strategy. We need to select and target terms based on relevancy and viability, volumes, levels of competition, and that sort of stuff. After keyword research and the resultant strategy, we are on to creating relevant content, ensuring that our site has pages that clearly and comprehensively address the topics, terms, and phrases we're targeting. This impacts on the page names, the headings, the URLs, and the content we have populating the page. Before getting to page discovery, we ensure crawlability and indexability, making it possible for search engines to discover and index your pages and read that content. As a basic point, sites come with a file called the robots.txt. This file gives information directly to search engines on URL locations that are not to be included when indexing the site. So, if you want a page to be picked up, it needs to not be in a location that this robot.txt has listed as being not for indexing. Just as inversely, those locations that are not suitable to be crawled should be listed in this file accordingly. The robot.txt is a manageable file, so it can and probably should be kept up to date. Managed properly, it will help with the effectiveness of search crawls. If not kept up to date, it can hinder. A large part of page discovery also has a significant impact on ranking positions, which should only serve to underline its importance. The reasonably large topic of internal site links. Let's take the most basic and SEO-centric examples first. The sitemaps, of which there are often two. The sitemap XML and the sitemap page, the one visitors actually see. The sitemap page acts a little like an index in a book. It lists the pages and provides a link to them. Access to the sitemap is itself important because, like any other page, bots need to be able to find it. The link to this sitemap is generally placed in the site's footer. The sitemap XML, on the other hand, this is a file or collection of files that are even less attractive than the sitemap page. But they don't exist for humans, so that's fine. These are submitted to the search engines and will tell the search engines about all your pages and the URLs they can be found on. The most important thing about these is that they are dynamic, managed by your platform to add any pages you create and remove any pages you delete or unpublish. Moving away from sitemaps, there are also other content hubs. Pages that offer little in their own right but which grant visitors usable routes to a subset of pages. One very common example of this is the brand A to Z. Another common example, one which doubles as an opportunity for the more creative team members to nostalgically bring back those old brochure publisher skills. The department page. What we are looking to avoid are orphan pages. Pages that no other site page is linking to. Additionally, what we should also look out for are those pages that do have links, but remain very hard to discover. It is possible that, like a human would, the bots simply leave the site without stumbling on overly well-hidden pages. In this sense, this means pages that lie deep within the structure. Way back in the very early 2000s, the advice to all people building e-commerce stores was, all pages should be 2 or 3 steps from the homepage. This was usability advice, not SEO advice. But it retains some value as a broad rule of thumb. There were similar base principles around site speed. Again, back then relating to user experience. Both these very ancient, early man principles still apply and can impact on SEO. Search crawlers operate within capacity limits based on the expected size of a website. If the bot is sent in circles or the site speed is too slow, the crawl may time out before all pages are discovered. So site page performance speeds and site link structure matter. Additionally, the links should be marked as followable because, aside from the robots.txt files instructions, individual links can be marked as either follow or no follow. A link marked as no follow is marked this way so search bots don't use it. Back now briefly to the sitemap page. If it's available via the footer and it's built properly, it creates a certain safety net. Pages will have at least one link and that link won't be buried and hard to find. By built properly I mean only does the basics. That like the sitemap XML, this needs to be a page that keeps itself up to date dynamically, containing currently published pages and of course delivers the content in a crawl-readable way. We'll come back to internal linking. It's broader than just this, with the more nuanced impact it has on ranking performance. But for now the point was about pages being found because they have discoverable, usable links within the site. We can use Google's Search Console and crawling tools like Screaming Frog to get a picture of which pages are visible. We should also remember that the content off the page needs to be readable by search bots. Again, we can use Search Console and other tools to help us with this, because there can be platform constraints that are hard to shake. Platform selection is important. Plus, there can be technical factors impacting the crawl, like speed, as well as JavaScript, which can require some care. This is content and links dynamically injected into the page, rather than being included directly in the source code. Relating to JavaScript, search bots have improved their reading around content appearing in pages through this method. However, there remains a higher risk that this type of content can be missed or misinterpreted. It doesn't have to be, but the complexity of this method increases the chances of errors. The main challenge, however, isn't complexity or cost. This part is quite simple and the tools are freely available. The main challenge is people. One group will know all this, and if they stumble upon this corner of the internet, they will likely wonder why there is a video banging on about it. As for the others, either they think they are doing this but they ain't. And these are popular ones. Site content has been handled as an exercise in self-expression, a validation of those creative writing and literature classes or simply rushed expedients. Getting the pages and the content on the pages right needs to be a deliberate, calculated and detailed step. A fundamental action that ought not to be skipped in favor of more novel and interesting activities. Moving on to Part B, improving the position ranking for our terms. We will stick with the topic we've already started on. Internal links, or as it might otherwise be known, website navigation. In approximate order of all-round importance. The top of page, persistent navigation. It's visible on almost every page and is a central point of navigation throughout the site. What this top navigation includes is crucial and not just for search engines. But as we are dealing with search engines here, we're taking that perspective. The search bots need to be able to crawl these links, and the technology used to serve them, whether HTML, JavaScript, or something else, needs to ensure they're readable and accessible to bots. This next point, if we can look at it as explanation without mistaking it for a specific or exact truth. If we simplify and think of links as a relationship between two pages, where the source page is recommending the destination page. And then we further think that those pages which have been able to attract the most links from their sister pages have forged the most numbers of connections. The pages start to look like the more important members to this little society, when compared to those pages who receive less. Now we have this content element, the top navigation, and it's appearing on nearly all the site's pages. Any page listed in this top navigation is therefore immediately receiving an inbound link from all these other pages. Place two links to the same page in the top navigation and suddenly you have a page with a lot more inbound links than its sister pages. Next, breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs matter for two reasons. First, they provide uplinks to parent pages. Second, they help apply structure to the site in the form of tiers. A lot of the time URLs do this, in part, but can't universally be relied upon. For example, categories and subcategories may appear flattened in their URLs, while product page URLs often sit directly under the homepage. In short, websites are just a collection of pages. There is no structurally solid pyramid shape that inherently exists. The shape of the site comes from the structural frameworks that are built around the pages. Breadcrumbs are one of these, a pillar around which the site's shape starts to be formed. Let's take 3 pages: clothing, dresses, and black dresses. We know there is a hierarchy to these terms, but the pages only sit in such a structure if we help provide it. The breadcrumb advises the shape for these as home, clothes, dresses, black dresses. There are some oddly common issues with breadcrumbs. One is simply that they go missing from some of the site's page templates, especially when the resolution becomes mobile in scale. Search engines are mobile-centric, so the absence of breadcrumbs, when at mobile resolution, can be impactful. Then there's breadcrumbs that contain dead pages. If a user clicks on this part of that breadcrumb, it would take them to a 404, no page found, or they would be redirected to a different page. Another not so uncommon problem we see on some sites' breadcrumbs. Weird stuff in the product page breadcrumb. For example, a black dress with the breadcrumb home, sale, products under £100. While it's likely true that, at some point, this product could be found via that route, it would be far from an optimal breadcrumb. For one thing, this product could quite possibly end up costing £120. Some other sites have a breadcrumb where the product page just sits after the homepage, no categories, doing a fine job of adding nothing very much at all. The point: while there should be multiple routes to the product pages, not all these routes are equal, and only the most logically consistent and persistent should be used for the breadcrumb. In most instances, for these reasons, the product type or brand route ought to be the primary paths, the one used by the breadcrumbs. There are a few reasons, but the most obvious is that time won't change what a product is or what brand it's from. Further, these pages are among the most likely to remain published over time. And even better, if a user clicks on one of the links in this type of breadcrumb, they are almost certain to see other relevant products. Moving on to our third internal link element, the category page links. These can go upward, from subcategories back up to a broader parent category. They may go sideways, to sibling categories, or point downward toward the page's subcategories. Some sites manage to align this with their product filters, to make it so that these filters actually positively contribute to the page linking. But that's a level of artfulness that is less common today. Initially, we will stick with the basics. A functioning link list that points to pages that exist and can be reached. From a usability perspective, product filters largely take care of downward navigation, allowing our visitors to move toward a more specific product set. But if, as a visitor, you land on hybrid bikes and want to see the road bikes, then, without such links, you're left having to resort to the full top navigation. From an SEO perspective, we're creating flow, routes, just as we are for human visitors. Pathways to pages that will reduce the number of steps between entering the site and finding any given page. Also, if we remember that subcategories may have 2 parent pages, only one of these can appear in the breadcrumb. These links, among other things, create space for both to appear. As previously touched on, there are also ways to use the on-page filters as active searchable links. This approach can also cast a wider net than the links can. However, it is substantively trickier than the managed links we were looking at before. Significant care is needed with this approach, if it is to be used, to make sure it ends up being a benefit and doesn't inadvertently create more problems than it solves. For example, we have to consider the scale of crawlable pages this could create. Another factor is the risk this carries with it, for the potential of content duplication. For this reason, the use of filters, unlike the standard page links we previously spoke about, is more an advanced and additional option than a prerequisite. Another common form of internal linking: product recommenders with their direct route straight down to our product pages. These elements get about often appearing on the homepage, on department pages, as well as on product pages where it can be used to recommend alternative as well as additional products. These also produce a helpful way to link content pages back into the store. This recommender component may not be comparable with the others we've touched on, but still it can perform a useful function, with its capability to increase access paths to our most successful and important products, depending on how they have been configured. Another substantial link element is the footer, the other part of the persistent navigation, along with the top navigation we mentioned earlier. We're covering this toward the end, only because this tends to end up as the lost and found bin of assorted links. A place links go for those pages that struggle to justify prominence, pages that are not so key to our visitors' journeys. So what are we saying? Footer links don't get clicked as much as the others. But this significantly diminished importance that footer links have for our human visitors is not shared by search engines. The footer is also a common and handy location for access to service and support information. And for those sites with a sitemap page, this will also likely be found tucked away as a link in the footer. In summary, internal links play a big role in both SEO and UX. This is a foundational and cornerstone item for e-commerce outcomes, internal links, site navigation. From an organic search perspective, good internal linking structures ensure that search engines can crawl your site efficiently as well as applying a sense of structure, distributing authority and clustering pages into topics, while creating and applying a hierarchy to help shape relevance. The nature and balance of these links is important, as is the avoidance of dead links. Links that lead to pages that can't be found, 404 errors, while also minimizing the use of redirects. While we're dealing with e-commerce fundamentals, those cross-cutting cornerstone items, let's quickly drop in the next of these. We mentioned it previously, the site page performance speeds. Site speed, which was and is one of those absolute fundamentals. In fact, it might just be the single most critical standalone factor. It impacts on both user experience. The mystery with this one is quite how so many sites forget about it or simply just pay it nowhere close to the attention it is owed. There has never been a time when this was not key, and yet. Actually, let's take a moment and treat ourselves to some examples. I'm not convinced these should be overly hard to find. And a second one. Two for two. Statistically not anywhere near a proof, but still it was a 2 for 2 fail, which starts to suggest something. There have been many views on Mike Ashley, not all of them repeatable here, but there is a reason why a Fraser Group website was selected when looking for solid examples. This group's websites often seem to get much more right than wrong. These guys appear to do this through a simple, practical willingness to acknowledge long-standing basic principles of good practice, and put the effort into those foundations. As an observer, it's hard not to notice that this is increasingly rare. Given the clear commercial impact, that's something which seems very odd. Looking more at the topic of site page speed, there is sometimes an element of the platform in this. Some platforms appear natively superior in performance terms, while others struggle. But generally speed is not a hard problem for a business to avoid. First, it's easy to monitor, both your own site and other people's. Second, using these same tools we can do a number of things. We can check the performance of case study sites before choosing an agency or platform. If the majority of the example sites are slow, then we know what to expect for our own, and that we ought really to go and look elsewhere. Next, we can make speed a prerequisite of any development work we do. Be it the initial build or subsequent changes, we can make the speed a key part of the required outcomes, to be tested and validated prior to sign off. Further, the same tests can be used on an ongoing basis to monitor for speed issues. This could come from site content or the site's delivery infrastructure like our hosting environment. So there is little or no mystery about how to keep speed under control. Inversely, it can become a substantial, hard-to-shift challenge if you let speed slide and have to fight your way back to a decent performance level. Before we move on, let's give a quick mention to site content. Often blamed for speed issues, but far less often a primary cause. The good thing is, not only is it super simple, it's also something our site managers have full control over. By not creating pages weighed down by heavy content, for example, adding images fit for an IMAX theater. Now let's finish this top-level mention of speed with a reiteration of why site speed matters. First and most importantly, it has a direct impact on user experience. Visitors expect fast-loading sites. Research consistently shows that slower loading sites lead to frustration, loss of engagement, and abandonment. This is especially true on e-commerce or service-heavy websites. Site speed correlates to page views, engagement, and conversion. As for organic search, slow pages risk the crawl timing out, running out of time and capacity, leaving content unseen or whole parts of the site uncrawled. From an indirect perspective, visitors demonstrating a lack of engagement with a site can negatively impact ranking chances. And as we discussed, poor speed is not good for site engagement levels. Apparently, Google's core Web Vitals has actually become more important in determining how competitive a site is. After that not-so-brief diversion into site speed, back to links. Earlier we were looking at our own site's navigation, the links we create on our own website to allow visitors to migrate from one page to another. Each page on a website has its own location in the internet. We can find it by typing that location into a browser or by navigating to it using links that point to that page. The links and the URLs themselves tell us also about where this page sits, placing it into the context of the website it's part of. Together these pages, their links and breadcrumb schema create the picture of our site structure, as well as each page's place within it. With external inbound links, we're zooming out, moving away from stitching domains together with our internal page-to-page links, outward to where we stitch the internet together, with links from one domain to another. A page on site X pointing to a page on site Y. Among the key differences with these external links are those that someone else decided to put on their site, in order to direct their hard-won traffic away from this site and onto ours. Importantly, they need to be doing so without sponsorship because that's an advert, and those mean nothing other than someone was incentives to do this. These external links hold a similar but still different meaning in terms of their organic search impact to our internal ones. As before, the ChatBot scripted my ramblings and came up with this. Exploring why backlinks are important to natural search position ranking. Imagine you are part of a social network or circle of acquaintances. In this network, the people you associate with shape how others perceive you. If you surround yourself with reputable, well-respected individuals, your own reputation and trustworthiness are enhanced by association. Others will be more likely to view you as credible and worthy of trust because of the quality of the company you keep. On the other hand, if you spend time with individuals who have a bad reputation or are known for questionable behavior, your own reputation can be damaged, regardless of your actions. Even if you're not directly involved in their behavior, being associated with them is likely to taint how others view you. Backlinks approximate this type of real-world experience. When other websites link to your site, it's like they are vouching for you or bringing you into their trusted group. One difference: backlink relationships only work one way. We don't control who links to us, but these links have a real impact on how our site is perceived by search engines. We can take action to encourage links and to remove them, but we don't control their coming into existence. So we've covered that not all backlinks are created equal. Broadly, we have links whose impact are either 1. Positive, 2. Negative, 3. Ignored. Another factor in this is whether the relationship already exists or this is the first such link. A link from a new domain, a site you don't already have a link from, tends to be more valuable than multiple links from the same domain. When we receive a link from a reputable site that hasn't linked to you before, this is like expanding our social circle by associating with a new, respectable person. This broadens our influence and signals to search engines that trust in us or the value of our content is growing. On the other hand, getting multiple links from the same domain, even if that domain is reputable, often results in diminishing returns. In summary, a diverse backlink profile, focusing on positive contributing links coming from a variety of trusted domains, is the main objective for link building. The two main challenges around this important aspect of SEO are, first, that it's both challenging and slow. Second, that we have no direct control over it. We can't touch this dial, we can only seek to actively influence. With content, we undertake the planning and improve it. For speed, we can diagnose the causes of any slowness and in most cases address them. But what we can't do is sneak about under cover of night and place links back to our site on other people's web pages. It's not a commune. The approach to gaining these links that are natural, relevant, and authoritative involves 1. Creating link-worthy content. A foundation piece for successfully developing backlinks is creating valuable content that others will want to link to. Things like in-depth guides or original research, content that is sufficiently unique and interesting to warrant referencing and linking to. 2. Outreach and PR. Content creation alone isn't enough. You need a proactive approach to get your content noticed. As good as it may be, it's not going to be getting any links if no one is around to notice it. This means reaching out, or even better, forming relationships with bloggers, journalists, and industry journals to ensure your target audience are aware of the content. If you have a relationship, you may even be able to gauge their interests and create content designed specifically to meet their needs. Additionally, one shortcut can be copying other people's homework. Certainly not in terms of the content, but rather in terms of finding prospective target sites to reach out to. We can do this through competitor and gap analysis. Analyzing your competitors' backlinks with tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush to allow you to identify who is currently linking to your competitors but not to you. This part of SEO is unique in that it does actually depend on more traditional marketing methods, like PR, relationship building, creative content, and content ideas. The reappearance of these with greater frequency may often be for reasons that aren't substantiated by any outcomes. But here such skills are key. We really need this balance between the creative and those digital norms of analysis and deliberate targeted actions. Acquiring backlinks is just one part of the equation. Maintaining the quality of your backlinks over time is equally important. Let's look at link decay. Backlinks can degrade over time. The pages linking to your site may, for example, get unpublished. This is why it's important to monitor your backlinks regularly. If you notice a valuable link has disappeared, reach out to the site owner to restore it or replace it with updated content. Further, we may ourselves delete a page that once received inbound links. We need to monitor so no such actions are taken inadvertently. And should we deliberately and knowingly delete such a page, then we do so with a plan to retain the value of its links. Ideally approaching the publisher of the link to update it. Or where this is not possible, we look at resorting to a redirect on our own side. Then there's negative link pruning. Spammy or irrelevant links can hurt our reputation and rankings. We should be using suitable tools like SEMrush and Ahrefs to audit our backlink profile regularly. If you find toxic links, we need to try to get them taken down or use Google's disavow tool to ask search engines to ignore them. As with all areas, we will need to understand the impact of our efforts. Defining success, then track our actions and outcomes against this, identifying what impacted and what probably didn't, helping us to see things like the content that tangibly delivered and the content that didn't. For example, was the content created to rank for target keywords? If so, is it? Or was this content instead curated in order to drive interest and gather inbound links? Again, if so, have we seen evidence of this? Ultimately, of course, we'll be judging all this through the prism of what value we achieve through our organic search channel. But that is a very broad and multifaceted metric. One aspect could have improved while another declines. So although this is what's ultimately important, it's not very precise or useful in terms of learning about what drove change and how to get better. Sticking with inbound links. We need to be aware of all the links we've acquired, and having done this, understand what level of effect we can see. The closest relevant measures we have are things like domain authority, so we need to keep an eye on this. The authority of our domain and how it flows throughout our pages. Using tools like Moz Domain Authority and the related page authority, or alternatively Ahrefs domain rating. Both of these give us a score that is based on a number of factors, including those inbound links. With this, we can see how both our own and our competitors' scores change over time, and to what extent this correlates with our link building and disavow actions. As a proof, it may not be a level of science most of us would be happy to see around a visit to space, especially if we'd been invited along. But still, it's decent and the threat of an ominous vacuum isn't hanging over us. Finally, on external links. The nature of the destination of these links matters, but it doesn't seem entirely straightforward or as clear as might be hoped. It's not helpful when those marked out as experts give contradictory information. This would also go some way to explaining why the bot seems to give different answers depending on the framing of this conversation. So, based on experience and more recent articles. First, root domain backlinks. These are links that point directly to the root domain, for example, website.com. In terms of SEO impact, this type of link boosts overall site authority, affecting the entire site's visibility and ranking. The ChatBot gave these an impact score of approximately 9 out of 10. Second, subfolder backlinks. These are links to a page somewhere in the substructure of the main domain, for example, website.com/blog. Since subfolders are part of the root domain, this type of link will benefit both that subfolder and the root domain as a whole. However, with these, strong internal linking is important in order to distribute authority from the subfolder throughout the domain. The overall SEO impact score from the ChatBot was 7 out of 10. Third, specific page backlinks. These are links to a specific topic page within the site, not the homepage or a hub page. This would be a page like website.com/blog/summershoes 2025 as an example. As previously, the quality of our internal links is important, as this is what takes the authority gained from the link and spreads it around our site. The SEO impact being approximated as 6 out of 10. Fourth, subdomain backlinks. This is the one where the disagreements really seem to arise. The first part at least is clear, easy, and not in dispute. These are links pointing at URLs that look like this, blog.website.com. This type of link is distinctively different from the previous three, because the domain itself has changed. Traditionally, subdomains have been treated as separate entities from the root domain. So, in terms of SEO impact, subdomains were not considered the same site. There was the root domain www.website.com, and there was the quite separate and distinct subdomain www.blog.website.com. So yes, we could build the authority by generating backlinks, but you would be building authority for the subdomain and not the primary root domain. I think it was for this reason that the approximate SEO contribution score given to this type of link was 3 out of 10. But others don't see it that way. The alternative view seems to be that search engines have improved and the likes of Google now have a much better understanding on the relationships between domains and their subdomains. So this leaves me with my personal experience and looking at some more recently published articles. My experience on this tells me subdomains didn't work well for SEO, but past experience by its nature happened in the before times. And the argument put that Google has improved its capabilities to understand domain and subdomain relationships seems reasonable. If I was looking to add a content section to an e-commerce site, would I now use this approach? No. Personally, I wouldn't. Or at least I wouldn't if I could reasonably avoid it. With all the effort that goes into content and link building, why add the complexity, or take the risk, with the doubt and uncertainty over its impact? Big and entirely in our own hands. The subject of content duplication. This subject has two parts. First is external content duplication. This revolves around plagiarism and content sharing. It's a relatively simple concept. Second is internal content duplication, which means having multiple pages on your own website that are about the same thing. This one is less simple. The underlying principles are that 1. A page is defined as a URL. 2. A page should be individual and unique on the internet. Where content is duplicated, we give the search engines a decision to make around which page or which site is the genuine and best version. To be clear, we really want to avoid this. It means unnecessarily entering into direct competition, and potentially with ourselves, which is clearly genius. Besides, by forcing search engines to choose, we create the opportunity for uncertainty, confusion, and coming out of all this quite poorly. One page is a narrow point, a tip, into which we can drive all our momentum, a focused point with which to break through. With a unique and relevant page, we have a far greater chance of success. First, external duplication, and the avoidance of content found on other websites. For example, don't copy product descriptions from manufacturers or shared sources. Write your own. Inversely, if you sell your products on marketplaces or third-party sites, then don't share with them the same descriptions that you intend to use on your own site. The chances are, for many of us, these third-party sites are bigger than our own. We will be doing our own site no favors at all by willingly and actively pushing our content onto them. Second, our internal duplication risk. It's not as simple as reminding ourselves not to publish multiple pages about the same thing, though that would be a reasonable start. One of the most common, easy-to-spot duplication risks comes with dynamic URLs. On most sites, we see these on the product listing pages. Pages like our categories, which mostly come with filters, to help us narrow down and locate suitable products. Each time we apply a filter, the URLs tend to change. Often, as we move from page 1 of the result to page 2, the URL will also change. Each version of these URLs is its own page, and there are a whole lot of versions. What we want is to either prevent these alternative versions being indexed, for which we look back at our robots.txt, or, if they are to be indexed, we want all those different versions to be seen as a single unified page. For this, we have canonical tags. These advise search engines that one URL is actually just a copy or version of another. It does this by using the master page's URL like a grouping ID. All the versions of the page have this master page URL in their source code, which declares them all versions of the same page. Doing this substantially reduces the risk of us appearing to have duplicate content. This use of canonicals is simple, with each version of the category page having a standard self-referencing canonical. This next one is more common as a problem. Websites rightly offer visitors different routes to discover what best meets their needs. For example, we offer visitors a pet toys page. They can then navigate on to a dog toys page. We also have a dog page. Those people on the dog page can also navigate on to a dog toy page. In both cases, it should be the same page. We will explore one example of this using JD Sport, who demonstrate the balance of different routes while keeping to one page, as it should be. And then another is Adore Beauty, who also have different routes but where the same topic has multiple pages. An example of how this can be done poorly. First, the better one. Here we shop for Adidas football boots, arriving at this page either by selecting football boots and then Adidas, or selecting Adidas from the brands and then picking football boots. In both instances, we end up on the same page, as it should. While in contrast here, we see the same thing playing out with men's fragrances. First, we pick fragrances before choosing men's, which leads us to a men's fragrances page. Then instead we start with men's, then fragrances, leading us again to men's fragrances. Only this time, the second one is a different page to the first. So why did Adore make such an obvious and problematic mistake? Clearly there's no way to know specifically why. But more broadly, we can take a reasonable guess, with two choices. Either a lack of basic knowledge, or a legacy hangover preventing good choices. Like a platform choice which has left them unable to tackle this properly. Older and more poorly architected solutions can impose this type of problem. Whatever the cause, however, it's an outcome we should be avoiding. And any platform that imposes this approach, it's hard to see a justification for selecting it. As we start to move on to the next topic of multinational and multilanguage sites, let's make use of a relatively trusted example site for a last look over category pages and their canonicals. If our business operates international sites, for example .de for Germany, .at for Austria, and .ch for Switzerland, and on each of these there are pages on the same topics in German, it will likely look like duplicate content. We overcome this with the hreflang tag. This tag tells search engines that one version of the page is targeted at one geographic region while the other versions are targeted at different regions, allowing this content to be treated as unique content within its target region and not a duplicate. Zalando gives us a real-world example of this. Just like with the canonical tags we mentioned before, this is about acknowledging that there are very legitimate reasons why duplicate content can come to exist. Search engines don't want to penalize sites for this, and so we have these tags that place control back into our hands by giving us the means to proactively highlight and explain these deliberate actions. It's not a foundational element, but while we're on this, an additional action would be to ensure the URL elements are written in the target language. For example, changing category to categoria for Spanish speakers. It doesn't constitute a major item, but URLs are not things we want to change unnecessarily. Ideally, we publish them and then leave them alone. So if we can sort this early, it's a potential bonus. Back now to the basics and another foundational item. Earlier we spoke about potential different versions of product listing pages. This same challenge can often apply to product pages. With these, though, it comes down to how the website has been set up to handle product variants. Variants are things like where the same product is being sold in different sizes or colors or both. Here you have a few scenarios. First, we want to use mostly the same content for all the variants. For example, same title, description, different image gallery. Here you have two choices, a good choice and the other kind. The good choice is demonstrated by many sites. We will look at a few here. The product page URL either does not alter at all, or only alters for one of the variants, here that's color, and this is merely appended to the end of the URL. The rest of the URL is shared, which allows for a master canonical URL that is common for all of them. In all these instances, we firmly and clearly communicate to any watching search engine that these products with their common content are one item and one page. The fact that there is almost no content difference between these different variants really matters. Were these different products that warranted different descriptive content, then this approach doesn't necessarily apply. In such cases, they might well be left as individual pages. But in the examples we are looking at, this is not the case. And just as it was in no way difficult to find examples of well-handled product pages with variants, the same is true about finding examples of the not so well-handled. But in the interest of the time, which has already gotten away from me, we'll just stick with this one. As we said, there can be completely justified, deliberate reasons to not merge these PDPs. For example, if your keyword strategy involves variant-specific phrases. But if the content makes no effort to reflect that difference, it's not likely to be a good idea. But just generally, this is getting into questionable territory. Yes, there can be advantages, but you need to be sure and deliberate. If not, it's more liable to create challenges than deliver benefits. Moving on from duplicate content caused by product pages, and back to performance, this time dealing in the search perspective. This is not the same as speed monitoring services, but it does help us to understand how search engines are perceiving the performance of our site. We already established that in terms of speed benchmarks, load time should ideally be under 3 seconds, with under 2 seconds being optimal. But for performance scores, for example, a Lighthouse performance score above 90 is clearly excellent. But we can take a different, less fixed view. What really matters, when escaping a speedy bear, is not how fast you can run, but whether you're going faster than the others. With performance scores, we need to be as good or ideally better than our competitors in the search space. Lighthouse scores and speed testing tools each offer valuable insights into website performance. But they fulfill different roles and contribute different perspectives to the overall picture. Lighthouse, broadly, is a tool designed to assess how well a site adheres to best practices across performance, accessibility, and SEO. It's a tool that can highlight issues, things like inefficient JavaScript, render blocking resources, and other SEO best practice topics, such as metadata usage and general crawlability. Some of those elements we previously touched on are also considered within these scores. The causes and reasoning are also provided along with the means to understand how our scores can be improved. Part of SEO is usability and engagement. Part of understanding usability is assessing accessibility. How usable a site is for those of us who are more dependent on non-visual aspects of the experience. For example, visitors using screen readers. The accessibility score in Lighthouse reflects how easily this type of tool, and therefore the visitors using them, can interact with and navigate our site. More to the point perhaps, screen readers and search engine crawlers both rely on structured, clear, and semantically meaningful HTML. This helps them to interpret and understand website navigation and content. Continuing with this example a little further, screen readers rely on properly structured HTML elements, e.g., header, nav, main, footer. Similarly, search engine crawlers will also use this to understand the content hierarchy and the importance of various elements. Proper use of content tags, like header tags, help both screen readers and crawlers determine the structure and key topics of a page. And the alt text. This is the descriptive text that ought to accompany visual content elements, like images. Alt text is used by screen readers to describe these kinds of unreadable content. For search crawlers, the alt text has two uses. First, it aids in the indexing and ranking of images within the image search. Second, it can add some important context to the overall narrative and relevance of the page, especially where that page is light on copy and heavy on images or videos. Another one is descriptive links. Links with meaningful anchor text are easier for screen readers to contextualize and for crawlers to interpret for relevance and internal linking structure. There is also content order and the page flow. Both screen readers and crawlers process content in the order it appears in the DOM, document object model. By ensuring a logical, hierarchical flow, we improve accessibility and also ensure that search engines encounter and review the most important page content first. Keyboard navigability. A site optimized for keyboard navigation, critical for accessibility, also ensures robust functionality without reliance on JavaScript, which can benefit search engine parsing. Therefore, we can say enhancements that improve accessibility will often align with SEO principles and create SEO improvements. Finally on this, while Lighthouse and Speed tools are often seen as interchangeable, that's not the case. They are, however, complementary. Local search is another aspect of search engines, designed to present results that are geographically relevant to the user. It works by assessing a user's location and tailoring search results to include options near them or relevant to their specific geographic context. Importantly, this isn't confined to explicit, things near me style queries. Location signals influence many types of search. In terms of location, we have implicit location influence. We see this when we search for things like running shoes. The search engines consider our current location in order to give higher priority to results that are relevant to that location. Explicit location queries, on the other hand, searches like coffee shops near me, bike shops in Dudley, the intent is clear, and results rely heavily on proximity-based rankings. Both mobile and desktop devices have methods to infer or identify. Schemas, also known as schema markup, are a form of structured data added to your website's HTML code. Normal content would be things like text, images, and videos, things we see sitting on web pages. Humans can easily interpret this content, but search engines benefit from greater context. Extra clues that help to understand it fully. This is something markup can help with. Schema markup provides a specific way to organize and label information, so search engines can interpret and present it more effectively. It removes a level of interpretation on the part of search engines by providing certain types of information in this standard format. So while normal content would be a piece of text like, "Here are some size 10 red Nikes, today only £80, the schema version of this would be, product, trainers, color, red, size, 10, brand, Nike, price currency, GBP, price, 80. By providing information in a format that organizes content into predefined fields, we make it easier for search engines to understand more accurately what our site is communicating. Schema markup uses a standardized vocabulary, schema.org, that communicates specific details about your content. One advantage we can see from schema use is more and richer content in search results. Prices, review ratings, or even whole sections, like FAQs. Another common one is the breadcrumb schema. As we know, breadcrumbs improve internal site navigation and structural clarity. Breadcrumbs make it easier for search engines to follow the logical structure of our site. Schemas make sure they can follow our breadcrumbs. Once again, we are now eating into time. And not only have we not tackled everything, but those items we have tackled, they've only enjoyed a superficial sort of flyby. Given all this, we could be tempted to fall into the SEO trap of seeing disconcerting complexity. But all of this still amounts to only a few things. First, having content that meets your prospective customers' needs. So we said, for this, we need to create pages and then target and optimize the content we publish into those pages. Content is not just copy. Images and videos have file names and alt text to describe what they contain. These are content too. This content needs to be unique and not borrowed from another site. Second, make sure these pages are discoverable. For this, we need site speed and internal links, along with support from sitemaps and our robots.txt, to ensure that the intended pages can be discovered. Third, keep it simple, avoiding conflict and confusion. Stick with one page per topic. This includes how we deal with our product variants and having different routes through our category pages, but only one category page per topic. We need to use the correct tags and schemas in our source code in support of this. This way, search engines can be clear and complete about what they have discovered. Canonicals and hreflang tags, for example. These help us deal with our legitimate instances of content duplication. While schemas, like breadcrumbs, products, and FAQs, translate our content into a structured format designed for search engines. People and machines understand us better when we talk to them fluently in their own language. Fourth, improve how we are perceived. We do this by increasing our external backlinks while building on the quality of these links, as well as by improving our site engagement levels and things like our lighthouse scores. Each of these aspects has its role to play. Going to town fully on one or two might deliver some benefits, but the best way to make progress is not to be brilliant at just one or two, but to be decent or rather competitive across each one of them.